The Florida Gators are reportedly trying to add Cormani McClain to their roster, and I'm torn.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. Happy Monday. I am Brandon Olsen. Find me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants, Country, and NFL 33. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, and that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. And the big news that came out about the Florida Gators this weekend was that Cormani McClain, once a highly touted five-star corner that was number, I think, like 14 in the country, according to 24/7's consensus or composite, that he is in the transfer portal after leaving Colorado after one season, and that Florida is considering bringing him in as a preferred walk-on. So with a preferred walk-on status, no scholarship, none of that. And obviously, we'll probably never get the answer to this, but there could be a thing where he's coming in as a preferred walk-on, but getting enough NIL to pay for his tuition, whatever that may be. And I'm going to say that I am torn on it because I know most of what happened with Cormani McClain when he was initially getting recruited in the 2023 recruiting class. So this was late 2022. And his recruitment was all over the place. It kind of felt like where, I don't know, for the most part, it felt relatively quiet. And we were like, okay, Florida, Miami, Alabama. Then he didn't go to Miami for a long time while he was visiting Florida and Alabama. And then he committed to Miami. And then he decommitted with checks bouncing, John Ruiz. And then he went to Colorado. And what makes me torn about this is that you are getting a five-star player, right? You're getting a five-star player who just finished his true freshman season, which, if you know how I feel about the transfer portal, or if you feel the same way, I think there's two levels to making good additions to the transfer portal. You're adding someone who was a starter where they previously were, a good starter at that, and are looking for a change of scenery for whatever reason. Could be Joey Slackman looking for a step up in competition. Could be Brandon Crenshaw Dixon looking for a step up in competition. Could be that you're coming here for NIL purposes. I don't give a damn. If you're a good fit and you play, then I don't care if that's your reasoning. Could be that you want to be closer to home, like Jason Zandamela, who just came in. Could be, I think he was a starter because he's still a true freshman. But you get my point, right? Like, you're coming to Florida for whatever reason. If you were a previous starter, your last spot, it's a good ad. Even if you're a depth piece here, you were a good starter there, it means you probably improve your depth here. Or the part that this fits with Cormani McClain is that you've been in college for less than a year. And so I'm going to consider you really an extension of the high school recruiting class. I understand you're going to be listed as a transfer portal kid. I don't care. I look at you as an extension of the high school class. But Cormani played last year, and we got to see that. It's not the typical. I feel like a lot of times when I say that, we're talking about a kid who didn't play as a freshman. But Cormani played last year poorly at that. So I want to make that one clear too. When Cormani McClain was coming out of high school, Lakeland, we were talking about him as this elite player, this elite recruit. And if I'm not mistaken, on this show, we had both John Garcia and Brian Smith talking about him. And both said he's very raw. He has things you can't teach as far as his height, his length, his speed. He's got like just his athletic traits in general, his ball skills, things that you really can't teach. You can't teach someone to really instinctively get there and make a play. You can improve it, but you can't teach them to just like do it like naturally. You can't teach someone to be 6'2". You can't teach someone to run a 4.44. You can't teach those things. So when you see someone like Cormani McClain coming out of high school, where he's incredibly raw, but he has physical traits that you can't teach, you're all right. We'll develop you. We'll make you better. Part of that trade-off, though, is that the player has to put in the work. And from high school and Colorado, everything we heard was that he's not putting in the work. And maybe he's changed. Maybe. But I'm not going to assume he's changed. I'm not opposed to adding a kid as a walk-on, and I will give him the same expectations that I give every walk-on. I don't expect you to play. If you do and you play well, great. If you're playing because you're in a really bad spot and you have to play, then that's not ideal. But if you're excelling and you earn that playing time and you're playing well, Taylor Spirito, then you earn it. You've deserved it. Good job. But if you never touch the field, I'm not going to pretend that I'm upset about it. Right? So that's kind of where I stand on Cormani McClain there. And I know that there's a lot of people talking on like Twitter and everything about, oh, the culture, the culture, the culture. I believe in the culture that Billy Napier's been developing in Gainesville. Like I've spoken to a lot of players and all of them are very bought in still. They're all just like, yeah, like I've spoken, not all of them, but I've spoken to one or two of them where their take has been, I love what he's doing here. I just hope he has the time to last here and actually get to implement everything he's been trying to implement. I don't know if that's gonna happen. You got to win games to do that. But as far as the culture goes, like I think the culture here that Billy Napier's been building is very strong. And if you think Cormani McClain is a bad seed, one bad seed, if that's what you want to call him, won't ruin the culture that's been building for a couple of years here. Okay? Like you can talk about it with Brenton Cox. Brenton Cox was an elite recruit, was a highly sought after player, went from Georgia to Florida, and is in the NFL. He's a Packer. He's like that. I know a lot of people don't pay attention to teams far and region wise. Green Bay, Wisconsin is not very close to Gainesville, Florida, but he's a Packer. Doesn't play much, but he's in the NFL. Went undrafted because he has character concerns, was a character concern in Gainesville. But also, they're different kinds of characters. There's levels to everything, and context matters. And when we're talking about Cormani McClain, I want to make this clear. These are different kinds of character concerns. Cormani McClain's character concerns are that he's lazy, he's not working hard, he's not putting in the work needed, he's skipping meetings. Those kinds of character concerns are different from if you're out there getting in trouble, getting in fights like at clubs and everything. And I'm not saying Cormani's not doing that. I am saying that that's not what I've heard about him. I've heard that he's like, gone to clubs or whatever. But like, if you're not acting out, then that's fine. I don't have a problem with it personally. But that's different. Like we get that, right? There's levels to it. And as far as Cormani's level is, it's mostly him as an individual, not something that really soils everything that you've been building as a program. We want to just get that out there. That's my stance on the character concerns part of it, or some of the character concerns part of it. We are about to talk about his play and further character and how that kind of is going to play into his potential addition to this roster. But first, we're going to get a quick word from LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn Jobs helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively necessarily looking for a new job, but are open to the perfect role. Like you can set that on LinkedIn where, hey, I'm open for the perfect role. And you can set it so that the only people who see that are recruiters externally. You could also set it so that everyone can see it if you want to do that. But if you want to kind of silently look elsewhere and let people know that you're open, you can do that. Just that's an option. I'm just saying, yeah, you have that as a possibility. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. And I just talked a bit about Cormani McClain's character concerns, how they're different. Because to me, they are. I understand there's probably going to be some people who don't view it as different. They probably just view it as there's character concerns, they're character concerns. If you're lazy, other people now have the permission to be lazy. Here's the thing about that also. If he's a walk-on and he's being lazy, you can get rid of him. It's not like you're like, oh, now we're down a scholarship. No, you can just get rid of him. It's nothing if he's not putting in the work. So you can do that. That's the thing with walk-on. You can handle that easily. Just be like, all right, deuces, see it. Simple. But again, I don't think that that's something that really carries over. I don't think being lazy carries over when we're talking about a player at the bottom of the roster. I think if you've got a star player being lazy, different conversation. But we're talking about Cormani McClain, who, when you combine the character and the play on field last year, like that's because again, we're talking about all that where he was coming out of high school very raw. We talked about this earlier in the show. We talked about this when he was a recruit. Very raw out of high school, but he had a very high ceiling if he put in the work. He hasn't put in the work yet. That's the character concern. When you look at the film last year, when he was playing for Colorado, because he did play rotationally, when he was playing for Colorado, he wasn't playing well. Okay? I'm going to throw that out there. He wasn't a starter on a 4-8 Colorado team. He wasn't playing well just as a backup player. He allowed, these PFF numbers were he was targeted 25 times, allowed 18 catches for 380 yards, which is 21.1 yards per completion, which was just I think just in the range that Jason Marshall and Jalen Kimber were in allowing, which was terrible, right? So if we're saying they were terrible, then Cormani McClain was terrible. Again, and I don't care about the little disclaimer of he was a true freshman, because you're not playing on a freshman team. You're playing college football here. Cormani McClain was bad for a freshman. Okay? Bad for a freshman, bad just in general. Okay? Like Francis Mauigoa, good for a freshman, not good just nationally. And I'm only bringing him up because we talked about him last week. So Cormani McClain wasn't good when he was on the field for a losing team last year. This isn't someone who's coming over from Michigan after just winning the national championship and they were backups and true freshmen. No, this is someone who, when he got on the field for Colorado, was not playing well. And I think that it's important to have that conversation because he wasn't playing well because he's not good at football right now. He's just not. And I'm not trying to bash him at all. I'm being honest here. My come up in media was through the draft. I still cover the draft. I have to be honest in my evaluation, he wasn't good last year. He's not good at football. He has a long way to go, growth and development wise, with his skill set. Again, he has the physical traits you can't teach, the physical traits I don't have, and I know I'll never have. But as far as technique, he's not there. And we know he's not been putting in the work. If he continues doing that, he's never going to be a contributor. So I just wanted to talk about that because I see that everybody, or not everybody, but I see a lot of people on Twitter, they're either talking about don't bring him in because he's not good enough for the culture, he doesn't fit the culture, or bring him in because he can help you win football games this year and he can do a lot. Here's the thing. You can bring him in, and I don't think he's going to impact your culture. And you can bring him in, and I don't think he's ready to play football in the SEC right now. He's not good enough as it stands. He needs to put in the work to develop and get there. And all things that we've seen are that he's not going to do that. And so I'm fine if you bring him in again. I'm going to treat him as I treat any other walk-on. If you're here and you're here to work hard, I'm happy. If you're here to work hard, not cause problems, I'm happy with it. If you're here and you're not going to work hard, I have full faith in this coaching staff to say, if you're here and you're not going to be productive on and off the field, you're not going to play. And so the way that I look at it is Cormani has a long way to go. He played as a true freshman enough to burn the red shirt, but that does not mean he played well. That does not mean he has to play this year. He's got a long way to go development-wise. Will Harris can help him get there? Absolutely. But he has a long way to go development-wise. And so I'm not looking at this as someone to come in and help with this hell schedule on the field. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at this as you're bringing someone in with a hell of a high ceiling, but has a lot of work to do. I look at this similar to talking about someone like Enoch Wangoy that we brought in. I don't know why I said we. I'm not on the team. But someone like Enoch Wangoy. Okay? Obviously, different extents, but Enoch Wangoy has all the physical traits, but needs to learn how to play the position. Cormani McClain has all the physical traits, needs to learn how to play the position. And it's as simple as that. Like, honestly, with all the discourse about his character, but he's a 5-star. I don't care about any of that. I don't care that you were a 5-star. No one cares that you were a 5-star. Nobody that matters cares that you were a 5-star. You know how I know that? Look at who's been trying to get him. Look at all the players that hit the transfer portal every year with any character concerns that they have, and they still somehow get scholarship offers from all these schools if they're good. Cormani's big character concern is that he's lazy. I think that there's a lot of coaches out there in college football that have the egos that go, oh, but he'll work hard for me. Especially when you go, oh, he didn't work hard for Deion, who is not, he's not known for handling things sensitively, I guess. Like, I feel like Deion would be known for being like, hey, like, Cormani, you're not working, get the hell in, like that kind of stuff. Maybe that doesn't work with him. And maybe a coach like Matt Rule will be like, he'll work for me. But they're not going after Cormani. Like, that's what I'm saying. Look at who's been going after him, and that his big character concern is that he's lazy and isn't working hard. There's plenty of coaches that usually talk themselves into that. But they aren't doing it right now. And to me, I think that's telling as far as his demand, who really wants him. That's just how I view that as far as what he did last year. Really wasn't good when he was on the field. He was a super high rated athlete. Every year, there are these 5-star kids that have 1-star work ethic, and they don't work out. And every year, those kids hit the transfer portal. And every year, fan bases of schools interested in them go, oh, but we can untap that potential. Like look at that. We can tap that untapped potential. And every year, it doesn't happen. So if Cormani McClain is going to come in as a walk-on, I welcome that. I welcome bringing him in as a walk-on, acknowledging that, hey, if you put in the work, you can be really, really good. But if you don't put in the work, you're not going to play. And you're going to burn out. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I'm not concerned about the culture. I'm not concerned about finding a player who's going to rotate in this year. I look at him as a long-term developmental. This is the equivalent of when an NFL team spends a 7th-round pick or an undrafted free agent signing on a guy that was decent, had hype, but character concerns. This is the Packers signing Brenton Cox. That's what that is to me. You've got character concerns. You've got a pretty high ceiling. Let's see if we can make it work. But if not, I'm not going to be too upset because I didn't invest much in you. Didn't even invest a scholarship spot. Okay, like that's fine with me. There are players on scholarship worse than Cormani presently is. I just want to that's happened. That's been a thing. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not going to be too shaken up if it doesn't work out. If it does work out, it's great return on your investment, great ROI. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to be too worked out, especially when you consider the rest of the corner room that you have right now. It's a fun possibility. We'll talk about that in a second. First, we are going to get a quick word from FanDuel. It is winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a win of your own. If you're a Pacers fan, from the bottom of my heart, I hate you. Just saying. Knicks play Tuesday. Just saying MSG. Maybe go. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. Every day, we are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. To wrap up today's show, we're still talking about Cormani McClain. Going to talk about the cornerback room. Right now in your cornerback room, you've got Jason Marshall and Devin Moore are they're not entrenched starters. Jason Marshall is, but they're your likely starters. Like there's a 95% chance your starting corners, if they're healthy, on week 1 are Jason Marshall and Devin Moore. Like that's fine. If Jason Marshall's taken the steps that we've been hoping he would take, that's fine. If Devin Moore stays healthy, I think he'll be good. Like again, I think Devin Moore's film, whenever he's been healthy, has been pretty impressive. He's just not been able to be healthy. Then behind them, you've got Jakeem Jackson, who it is funny that when Jakeem Jackson and Cormani were getting recruited and Cormani picked Miami, that Florida and Miami fans were constantly going back and forth about things like this. And it was funny. And if I'm not mistaken, there's a clip somewhere of Jakeem Jackson like catching a screen and then just burning Cormani, which is funny. By the way, Cormani at Colorado had a 37.5% missed tackle rate. That's not good. That's got to improve as well. You got Jakeem Jackson, Deion Johnson, Jameer Grimsley, and Teddy Foster. And that's pretty much the guys who are going to play, right? For the most part, there might be someone who like pops in occasionally or throughout the course of the season can find a way to work into their rotation. But for most people, I think those are the 6 names that you think of when you think of the 6 most important cornerbacks in the room right now. I think that's generally who you get when you talk about that. And again, we're talking just on the outside, so we're not talking about Sharif Denson or Aaron Gates or anything like that. But those are your 6 that you're really talking about. Because again, you got Trick Bridges is going to be on the outside. You got safeties in abundance. Ethan Pouncey transferred out. Don't forget that. So looking at corner, there's 6 guys. That means next year, let's say Devin Moore is healthy, has a good year, he can leave. Jason Marshall is gone after this year. Going to be looking for long-term. So long-term, you can have a room with Jakeem Jackson, Deion Johnson, Jameer Grimsley, Teddy Foster, Cormani McClain. Like you can do that. And Cormani can add to that room and be a youth piece. But I look at Cormani more in between Deion Johnson and Jameer Grimsley than I look at him as between Devin Moore and Jakeem Jackson. Because I'm looking at this as Jason Marshall, Devin Moore, Jakeem Jackson, Deion Johnson, Jameer Grimsley, Teddy Foster. I put Cormani between Deion and Jameer, maybe even between Jameer and Teddy Foster. Like, I'm not looking at someone that I think is ready to play right now. And also, it's important to acknowledge, again, that's okay. If he redshirts this year, that's okay. If we're being honest, he should have redshirted last year. He's 165 pounds. Actually, yeah. Cormani McClain is listed as what, 6'2", 165 pounds. I'm 5'11", 165 pounds. I know I don't look like I should be in the SEC. I know build-wise, I don't look like I should be playing corner in the SEC. Imagine being taller than me, but the same weight. Does that look like someone that should be in the SEC playing football right now? It's no wonder he had a 37.5% missed tackle rate. He's 165 pounds. And I can't talk like again, I'm fine bringing him in as a long-term developmental piece with very little investment as far as capital, because you're just scholarship. If he's a preferred walk-on and you're giving him enough NIL money to cover his tuition, whatever it is, I'm fine with that. That's minimal investment. When you look at the grand scheme of things and all the capital you can spend on players, all the capital you could have spent on a 5-star corner last year that you didn't get, I'm fine with that. And even if you just make him preferred walk on, don't give him NIL, and you go, hey, you know what? This is for anything that might have been done under the table or anything like that. Consider that from when you were being recruited. Throw that in there. Whatever it is. I don't care. I look at this as a long-term developmental piece with very little investment capital. That's a fine addition for me. And again, maybe it's different. If you're more concerned about, hey, we're bringing in a guy who's got a bad work ethic. If you're more concerned about that than I am, then you're probably going to dislike this more. But as far as I'm looking at it, I think you were bad last year. You shouldn't have even been playing in the Pac-12. You should have been focusing, one, strictly on gaining weight, which again goes back to the work ethic thing of not showing up to workouts when you needed. But you should have been focusing on gaining weight and getting on the field, earning it, play like knowing your assignments and executing those assignments. Instead, you were on the field where, again, you were not a quality player in the Pac-12. I do not think that you are ready to be a quality player in the SEC. So if you redshirt Cormani McClain for 2024, I'm fine with it. If he can somehow work his way into the rotation and be a quality corner here this year, then I'll be stunned. I will. But as far as I'm looking at it as an extension of the high school class, very little capital investment. Throw him in there, make him earn everything. And if we're looking at that, then yep, he could start below Teddy Foster on the depth chart for all I care. Work your way up. There's spots available in the future. We know that. We can look at the depth chart and say, hey, 2025, 2026, this corner room, this secondary is going to look real different. So there's spots available for you to earn it, but you got to actually earn it. And he doesn't have the reputation of someone that's willing to put in the work to earn it. So if he doesn't work out, he doesn't work out. If he does get his head on, and I'm not writing him off, I'm just being honest, how many times we see a kid come in as a 5-star and people go, oh yeah, but he's got like a little bit of work ethic issues, and then they never pan out because they're not putting in the work. Like that happens. And it's not always their fault. Like if you've got a bad work ethic, that should hurt your rating, but it doesn't. Whatever. My point is, I'm not convinced. I'm not going to be optimistic. I'm not even going to expect him to develop and become what he can become. But you bring him in, you treat him like any other player, you let him earn that time, you let him earn snaps, you let him earn that development, and he does it, then he can be really good. And Billy Napier would look like a freaking genius, by the way. If Billy Napier brings in Cormani right now as a preferred walk-on and develops him and he becomes a very good quality player, like the expectation was when he was coming out of high school, Billy Napier is going to look like a freaking genius because they're going to go, oh, like he took a flyer on a kid that had character concerns and he fixed them. And that's going to help Billy Napier's reputation a ton. And if I'm Billy, like I get it. I get taking that swing and kind of just betting on myself. I understand it. If he can do it, that's awesome. I'm not sold that it's going to happen, regardless of who's coaching him. I'm just not sold on it, and I'm not going to get my hopes up for it. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free reviews in the podcast and on YouTube. We'll be back tomorrow. Maybe talk more Cormani. We'll see what happens with it. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with Giants Country and NFL 33, and I'll see you all next time.